Okay, it is important to mention that I bought this camera for a specific purpose. The camera didn't fulfill that purpose, so I sent it back. However, for certain things, this can be the perfect camera, and when you look at the build quality and the features and the specifications, it's actually a wonderful camera, especially for the price. This camera reminds me of my GoPro. It's designed primarily for one particular job. In some situations, the GoPro is literally the only camera that you can use, and it gives excellent footage in those conditions, but it isn't necessarily the camera that I would want to film everything with. Similarly, the Osmo Pocket 3 is definitely the camera I would buy as a vlogger, but it's not necessarily the one I would go to first for everything else. Now, a quick recap of the hardware of this camera, as it is surprisingly good. The star of the show is the 1-inch sensor with phase detect autofocus, and this is really important if you want to keep the object that you are filming in focus. But there are other hardware components of this camera that go well above and beyond what I expect at this price point. The 2-inch OLED screen is the best screen I have in any of my cameras. Just the brightness and the sharpness and the contrast of it makes using it outdoors in the sun or at night a pleasure. The rest of the camera also looks pretty sturdily built, although I have heard people recently having problems with this screen rotating mechanism, so look out for that on yours if you buy one. The fact that they fit an f2 lens in here is also incredible. They could have just put an f2.6 or an f2.8 like everybody else and nobody would have complained, but they went the extra mile to put the f2 lens, and I'm really happy to see that. The 20mm focal length is ideal for vlogging, and in fact it's a focal length I use most of the time on my Panasonic X5 Mark II. It's what I'm using right now. If you buy the Creator Kit, it even comes with a 15mm lens, which is what you expect on action cameras such as a GoPro. Now, not only is the lens very bright, but it also incorporates autofocus, and this is especially important if you want to focus on things up close. Typically, action cameras are fixed focused far away because you can't have moving elements in this kind of lens. It would just get damaged very quickly with all of the vibrations. But because this camera is mounted on a gimbal, it's a lot safer to incorporate moving optics such as autofocus into it. Because of this, you get the ability to focus on close objects, like for example your face or any object that you're featuring in a video. This is something that's just impossible to do on something like an action camera, for example. The Osmo Pocket 3 is what I like to call external image stabilization, which means it's not optical, it's not IBIS, but the whole camera moves to compensate for motion. The result is exceptional because it doesn't have to crop into the sensor to allow for electronic image stabilization, so you get better image quality. The gimbal stabilization on this camera enables its second unique selling point, which is the capability to track people and objects automatically. Situations where you would normally need a trained cameraman. Despite a few quirks getting it to work, I think if you need this feature, there isn't going to be any other device out there that gets this done as well as this camera does. The large image sensor and the large aperture lens combine to give this camera excellent low light performance. In my last video, I demonstrated how this combination behaves like a full frame camera with an f6 lens, and it's better than pretty much any small portable camera you can buy, even ones in a traditional camera body format. Link below to that video if you'd like to check it out. Lastly, I just want to mention the menu, which I found a little bit confusing personally, but it might be just because I don't own any other DJI products, so I don't have the familiarity with the menu system that will probably come in time. So if you are a vlogger who does walk and talk videos, this is the best all-round camera that you can buy right now. The face tracking feature is going to be perfect for tracking you, as you don't have to worry about keeping yourself in frame as you walk around something. That isn't as easy as you might think. Keeping your face perfectly centered is going to level up your video quality and also reduce your workload, so you can focus more on what you have to say instead of thinking about framing yourself in a screen. The autofocus means your face is going to be in focus and not the background. The result is going to be much better than you can get from an action camera. That is, of course, unless you're vlogging in less than perfect weather, because this camera does not have any weather resistance at all. And because of all the joints, I would be really hesitant to get this wet. In these cases, you have to use an action camera that can withstand the elements. However, you'd be sacrificing the autofocus and you'd be sacrificing the brighter lens. And this is a trade-off that you have to consider when deciding between the two. I want you to think very carefully about how much you're going to use the tracking feature in the Osmo Pocket 3, as this is the one thing that most differentiates the Osmo Pocket 3 from an action camera, all other factors being equal. If you think that most of your shots can be achieved by setting up a static camera, then perhaps an action camera is the way to go, or maybe even just use your phone. In my personal experience with this camera, I find the tracking to be fun and unique, but it does get tired very quickly. There are not that many scenarios where you actually need tracking in your videos. It also adds a certain level of uncertainty because while using the camera, at some points I didn't really know which way the camera was pointing at any particular time, so I had to actually stop what I was doing and look at the camera to make sure it was actually still pointing at me. If your budget could stretch to buying the Osmo Pocket 3 and an action camera, I think that would be the best combination, as those two cameras would cover most scenarios really well. If you can only afford one or the other, you're going to have to consider your particular use case. Are you going to be doing more vlogging, particularly at night, or videos of anything with close-up? Then the Osmo Pocket 3 is the one for you. If you think you're going to get wet at all while filming, then you'll have to sacrifice the low light gathering and tracking of the Osmo Pocket 3 and use an action camera instead. What I would do personally, if I could only buy one camera, I'd buy the Osmo Pocket 3 as my daily camera, and resort to my iPhone for when the weather gets rough, because the iPhone is weather resistant. Although I still wouldn't take my iPhone into the ocean or anything. But that seems to me the best compromise for the time being. Thanks for watching. I hope that helped. As usual, if I have any updates to this review, I'll post the links down below. I'll do a short and I'll post a link down below. If you want to support this channel at no extra cost to yourself and you want to buy this camera, please use my link below. I'll get a couple of cents and that'll help me out a bit, give me a bit of encouragement. And of course, if you want to see more content like this, hit like and subscribe, and see you next time. Bye for now.